My name is Dr. Dara Winley, and I am having an interview for Mental Health Awareness Month with my best friend, Brittany Monachino, period. We are going to talk about the importance of movement today in our mental health series. Thank you all for being here. If you were here last week, we talked about breath work with Dr. Lachey. And so today we have a guest, and we're going to talk about dance and movement and all the things regarding our body and mental health. So I would like to pass it on to Brittany to introduce yourself if there's anything in particular that will be helpful for people to know about your background. I can tell people that you are a Broadway star, period. And there's so many things that you've done in your career, but I want to hand that off to you so that you can share.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Brittany Monachino. I am a professional dancer. I started dancing when I was 3. And I've performed in Philadelphia. I have performed with King Kong. That was my Broadway debut. And most recently, Wicked, the national tour. Just a few.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Seriously. I think when I think about movement, I definitely think about you because you have been someone just personally in my life that has helped me with movement and making me see the importance of that and how it relates to all things. It's all interconnected, like our body, our mind, our soul. And so being able to hear just little tips and suggestions that you share with me and being able to bring that to the Attn Ladies community so people could also learn from your expertise and your experience, I think is going to be really rewarding. So first, I want to start off with asking you, why is movement important? Why should someone consider moving?
Well, movement is super, super important because it's something that we do every day. I think coming from a dance background, and I've been thinking about this a lot in the past couple of days, there's so many different movement techniques that we study. But for the non-dancers or non-professional dancers, you move every day. When you get up, I usually yawn and stretch. When I reach for something, when I need to pick up my groceries, walking, running, if that's your thing, movement is so important for your physical health, obviously, but also mental, emotional health. I find that when I'm not moving as much, I'm not as healthy, not only physically, obviously, but mentally and emotionally. There's a lot of static reserve things that I'm holding on to. So movement is super important, and we do it all the time, whether we're aware or not.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. I'm just thinking about someone who's having trouble with movement. And, like for instance, with me, like I sit at a computer all day, or sit in a chair all day. So it's not a part of like my daily routine. And so what would you suggest for the person who's just kind of at their computer or working from home and don't really have a lot of flexibility with like everyday movement? Like what would you suggest around that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably say it a couple times, but movement is so important. Sedentary lifestyle is dangerous. It's not good for us for many, many reasons. If you are predominantly sedentary, that progresses a lot of the health issues that we see that people are dealing with. So as much as you can, if you're always sitting down, if you can find moments where you can stand, if you have back-to-back meetings, if you can find a moment where you can go into like a yoga sequence or a stretch sequence, put on a song and dance. It may seem like nothing, but it is something. It breaks up the tension that we're experiencing, and just flexibility doesn't mean your leg has to be over here, but oiling those joints is so important. It's really, really important. The older you get, very, very important. So I would say make time. Same way we're looking for healthy eating habits, the same way if we're able to, we're incorporating therapy, like talk therapy or other forms of therapy, incorporating movement in your day as a priority, as a I have to do this, and it's a privilege to do this, is a really big shift and an important shift to have.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, and you mentioned there's a couple of things you mentioned, like the nutrients aspect. And also
Mm,
I hear you saying like the value of um, being intentional, in your schedule, like prioritizing it.
mhm.
And so I think all of this, like eating and moving, like it all goes back to like supporting your mental health. So can you just
Yeah.
tell me the connection between like movement and mental health? Like how does it support me mentally and emotionally?
Yeah, I think I'll make it personal. I think one of God's like greatest gifts to me has been movement, like from the inception of my life. And I think it's one of everyone's greatest gifts, whether you're a dancer or just an athletic person or just day to day, you're moving in whatever way you find in your job. It's one of the greatest gifts because before I had traditional therapy, access to it and or before it was seen as something that's like socially acceptable or acceptable culturally within my context, I had movement. That was my first journal, movement journal. That was my first therapy session before I had someone like needing through these different like blocks, emotional blocks. Dance was therapy for me, is therapy for me. And also I was thinking about this today. It was my first kind of, well, I was in church from the beginning of my life, but it was like a church in a way, like a very sacred space.
Yeah.
Every time I went to the bar, like there was a routine for the ballet person who's in ballet. You always start with plies and you end with grand jetés or big jumps for people who don't know. And it was a way for me to pray, even though I didn't know I was praying. Like whatever I was coming in with, whatever happened in my family, or whatever happened at school, or now as an adult, whatever happened in my personal life, it was a way to either go deeper into that and find an emotive way to release, or it was a way to disconnect and to dive into what does my body need? Like, how is my body yawning? How is my body yearning? How is my body crying or expressing joy or strength? Um, so I definitely lost the question, but like movement is so beautiful. And for me, I think it's been a teacher, it's been a friend, it has been a therapist, it has been so many things for me, and it is so many things for me.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's really beautiful. I don't think people always understand the importance or seeing the body as a gift,
Hmm.
like you mentioned it. I think it could be like sometimes just, you're taking advantage of it or you're taking it for granted or you don't really know, like you're in this
Yeah.
body and people have so many different experiences with their body, over time as well. Um,
Hmm.
a lot of like talking to my own personal clients, like hearing like the self-hate or self no hate and love relationship with their bodies, and how
Hmm.
that transforms over time. But it can be hard because sometimes people are experiencing like these unwanted like negative thoughts about their body and like hating the body
Yeah.
that they're living in.
Mm.
So have you had any experience of like um, kind of like transforming your thinking on how to like love and accept the body that you're in?
I love that question. I love it because dance is a gift that has been given to me. Movement is a gift that's been given, I believe, to all of us in different capacities. And it has also been taken away from me many times in moments of injury, surgery, um, and or even sometimes like when I'm emotional, when I'm going through something, uh, I may or may not want to engage in movement. And where I am now is I think it's really important to love your body in every phase or try to find something about it that you like. And so right now, um, me as a dancer, being fit is super important. Being healthy is very important. Um, and that looks different for every body type. And that's something to know. But culturally, that can be really difficult sometimes when we see other images that aren't supporting that. And so I've definitely been through moments where I'm like, oh, I don't like my body today. Right now she's thicker, for example.
You know.
And I'm really no, I'm celebrating. I'm celebrating this body. I'm like, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for being with me through this past season that was pretty challenging. And we're fuller, but we're fuller. Okay? Come on. You know? So I've yeah, I've definitely had moments and I have moments. I think it's daily sometimes where you're like, oh, I don't like how that looks. I don't like how that feels. I don't have the same range of motion that I had a year ago or last week. And then I think it's just dedicating myself to this process of, okay, um, what exercises can we do? What stretches can we do? Can we just walk in the morning and at night? And can that be helpful for me? And it's very, very good for me.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
I like you talking to your body, talking like
Oh,
saying positive things about your body over your body. It's like what our parents tell us, like, cover yourself in prayer, like, just
mm-hmm.
using those words that are actually like fulfilling and like, yeah, manifesting something like positive, And so
Yeah.
I appreciate that, like naming that for people because I'm thinking a lot about different types of people who might be needing this interview, watching this
Mm,
video and thinking like, man, like, I don't even want to be in this body, let alone take care of it.
mm, yeah. And that's real. Like, I think you just said I talk to my body, but my body also talks to me. My body lets me know, hey, this there's pain right here. Hey, there's a knot in my upper shoulder, or my like upper neck area. And either that is, well, it's both. It can be physical. So maybe I'm overusing this area, or I'm overusing the or underusing the muscles around my knee, so it's not as supported. Or it can be emotionally, mentally connected. I think it always is. And so having that conversation with my body, that dialogue, like, what do you need today? You need a stretch? Okay, let's do a stretch. You need, I have a lot of anxiety today, so maybe I'm not a runner, but maybe I need to do a brisk walk. Maybe I need to take a dance class or lift some weights today to break up some of that stuff in here. Um, so I think, yes, I speak to my body. I definitely do. And I try to encourage it. But I also try to listen.
That's
And if
good.
you don't listen, your body it will override. So it's best to listen to it.
Yeah, that's really good because you are saying, basically this communication process that happens, between you and
Mm-hmm.
your body and like your body
Mm-hmm.
speaking to you um, is really valuable as well because like there's so much that you get from that and it kind of helps signals you and indicate certain things, that might be neglected or overlooked and also things
Mm-hmm.
that go really well like you're saying like I'm in this space where I'm feeling fuller in a lot of ways and like that's
Okay.
positive and like that makes you feel good so you're getting those messages and I think that's also
Mm-hmm.
an intersection of like how it impacts you mentally and emotionally because then that creates more love for self
Mm-hmm.
appreciation of God for your body like just different things right so I think that
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I just, to echo, I think it's really important to be grateful for your body. Um, I'm really grateful for my body, even in its limitations too. I think, um, and not to make it sound like pretty because limitations hurt sometimes. Or limitations sometimes I may have shame like I wish I could do this the way I used to be able to do it. um but I think I've been trying to practice this lately, every morning being like, Lord, thank you, like, thank you for this body, thank you for this day because it's not guaranteed. Thank you for the functionality that I do have. Thank you for the functionality that I will have by faith, um, and just being patient. I think it's really important to be patient with your body as it changes. And something I was thinking about today as I was preparing for this was movement. My movement has looked like um, a professional career and specific techniques that I've used throughout my career. but also there's this movement practice that grows with me. And I was thinking about how my relationship to movement has changed as I've changed, as I've questioned things within my life or within my career. My practice of movement has had to adapt. And we have to adapt with our bodies, with our surroundings all the time. So to expect that my body will stay like this is unrealistic. To know that it will do this is, I think, being more kind to myself. But yeah, gratitude is really important. And I like to watch a lot of videos. There's this guy on Instagram who he's British, Black and British, and he works with these people who have varying physical capacities. And I love to see it because it's a reminder to me, like, don't ever give up. Because there's someone who what you do easily is difficult for them, but they're trying every day, and they're committed to, like, I'm gonna lift this jug of water today, whereas you're like, and so I make it a habit of watching documentaries or videos of people who have either gone through injury and make it out, or have a varying physical capacity and are working with it every day, and trying to find that 1% better. I make that a habit often.
That's so good. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope people will follow up with the Instagram contact that you mentioned. Yeah. It's just good to see examples, what you're saying. And like, also,
Mm,
I think the point to gratitude is like being able to hear other people's stories, outside of your own, which also increases gratitude, for what you have.
mhm.
Sometimes it can increase a desire to also want to care for what you do have more, like better. So
Yeah.
yeah, I remember, I think it was in 2020 during the pandemic, maybe it was afterwards, that you started the movement diary. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can specify the timeline, but I remember that being like really inspiring for a lot of people watching and seeing how one for just the world was trying to recreate, their lives and their routines and using their gifts in ways that were still meaningful, but like you mentioned the word limited. And so
Mm.
I remember that kind of birthed from that space. And so can you just share a little bit more about like what that was like for you in creating that? And yeah, just hearing your story and journey from
Okay. Um, yeah, so it's funny you say, like, it started during the pandemic in that way. It did. Um, but I was tracing back, when did it really start for me? And it started in my bedroom when I was like in elementary school. But I wasn't calling it movement diary. Definitely wasn't. I was just moving for movement's sake, or I was moving because, there was tension, and I needed a way of escape. Um, but yeah, I've had movement as a diary for a really long time. But in this particular context that you said, yeah, couldn't leave the apartment like all of us, many of us. I was in New York. I didn't leave New York during the pandemic. And I was trying to find a way to get out everything that I was feeling. I was missing being around people, missing hugs, missing touch, missing community. And I just used it as a way, like I said, to process what I was feeling. Sometimes I would write, as openly as I felt comfortable, like kind of what it was about. And other times it would just be, maybe it was like movement diary forgiveness. I remember one time I had a conversation with a friend where I felt like I could have responded better. And I felt really bad about it. And I just put on some music, and I think it's still up on my page. And I was really remorseful, but I didn't know yet how to have that conversation. So I had it with my body. And it was just a way for me to process how I was feeling as a mixed woman, Black and Italian, as so many different things were happening. And I felt this inner, like, I don't want to say conflict within my blood, but maybe that's what I mean to say. Like, this internal wrestle of like this war at the time. Um, And yeah, I use movement as a way to find joy, to keep my sanity realistically, to empathize with other people, to pursue justice. Like when I think about movement, there's so many things within movement that it is. Like it's a protest, it's expression, it's love. Like sometimes people don't know how to say I love you. So they do something. And it's like, or I do something. That's my way of saying like I love you. Or I love living, or I love myself. Like who am I? A lot of my movement is like finding the most powerful version of myself, and or showing the most vulnerable, raw version of myself that maybe language I don't feel as safe to say, or I don't even know how to say, or there's no words to say. Um, yeah. So my movement diaries have been really important, and like life sustaining in a way.
Absolutely. That's so good. I'm like want to know more and like ask so many more questions.
Mm.
But it's like the body talks, and there's so
Mm-hmm.
much that you've gotten, like you said, since elementary school with your body over time.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're putting definitions on some things now, but like you've always had this communication process, with your body and the way that
Mm-hmm.
you talk to it and it talks to you, So I think that's really cool. Um,
Yeah.
and you also mentioned, without mentioning that another way of supporting your mental health, like the joy that it brings, the love that is increased, and also
Mm-hmm.
how that might even be transpired to someone. The communication through your body might be transpired to someone as well, or transferred to someone. Like they can see a movement that you're making, and that's your way of saying I love you, or that's your way of being connected to them. So I
Yeah.
think that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think it's cool because movement, what's the word? It's where it's happening right now, where language ends, movement can pick up. So like when you talked just now, you did this and you moved. So we have body language, when you're talking to someone and they're kind of like, and you're like, are they okay? It's tension going on, like, or maybe they don't fully agree, or so even if I'm performing a piece or just moving and maybe I'm saying I love you, or I'm saying I'm here, you might not get that I'm here, that phrase, but you might get a feeling transferred, which is power, which is assurance, which is readiness. And so sometimes when us as dancers will share like this piece was about all these different things, sometimes people get it, and sometimes people get a feeling, or somehow it's translated to what that person needs, something that's going on in their life, and it propels them to be able to take whatever next step, or just maybe have been distracted for like the hour and a half of the show. So
Yeah, no, that's so
yeah.
good. That's so 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 good. Um, yeah, there's so much there. But I'm gonna keep it trekking along. Um, are there any tips that you would suggest? Like, because I feel like movement looks different, for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the different types of movement that are out there, that people may or may not have heard of? And well, I'll do the tips in a moment. But yeah, just the different types of movements that people might be able to engage in.
There's like so many. There's
Yeah.
so many, but
Is there anything that you
it,
has worked for you?
yeah, that works. Okay, well, I'm doing some basic stuff right now, and actually, it's not even that basic because I think it's about consistency. So every morning I'm getting up, I take a walk. There's a track nearby. I walk around 3 times, come home, and I stretch. Then every evening I get up and I walk. There's like a dock area. I look at the sunset, do my little loop, and I come back. Right now, that's what I'm doing consistently 6 days a week. Amen.
And I just say
Um,
it's important though, because I think people
mm,
think that it has to be like I'm like joining a Zumba class, or now
mm,
I have to sign up for this or that. Like, and it's just as simple as that, of moving.
mhm,
And not to minimize that, because I know that can be really difficult for people to like even get out of their house and schedule that time. But to
mhm.
say like what you're saying, that you're doing it, I think that can be really freeing for some people to see that it can start there.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really important at this season in my life to be here where I am, where I'm walking in the morning, walking at night, doing my stretch, maybe do some weights. Um, because something else that's really important in movement, whether you're a dancer or not, or just active person, is progression. I think sometimes when we're like, I'm gonna move, then maybe we're like, I'm gonna take that really hard hit class, and your body is like, whoa, we don't even walk that much. We don't stretch.
That's happened to me too many times. Like I would go to the gym and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this workout. And girl, I'm
Mm-hmm,
like over there trying to do the stairmaster or doing like the treadmill. And I'm like,
mm-hmm.
why did I do all the way to like the eighth level? Like, girl, start at the basics. Cause sis, you over
Mm-hmm.
here huffing and puffing. Take
Right.
it.
Puff,
Yes.
puff, puff, and blow your house down. No, it's so important because so recently I started let's be active again, and then I was like, I'm gonna do all these knee stabilization exercises, all this, all that. I think on day 3, my body said, "Who are you talking to?
Mm,
Who are you talking to? Shut it down." And for a few days, it said, my body, what we need is a stretch. What we need is you to be kind to us and figure out a progression plan. Okay. And so I think um, sometimes starting small is really starting big. Walking every day or going to the gym for a set amount of time every day or taking a dance class, ballet class, modern class, jazz, house, hip hop, whatever, Latin, salsa. Okay. There's so many options. There's so many African.
right.
There's so many options, but it's really important to be strategic. And strategy is kindness. Okay. That's what I'm learning at almost 34.
I love that.
Strategy is kindness. Consistency is kindness. Um, to yourself. It's kindness to yourself. So, and yeah, being consistent is really important. The older you get, and also forget age, but it's so important.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Any tips on building strategies? Like, do you have any strategies that you're trying right now that you work or that you've maybe seen with other people on strategizing on how to include movement in your daily routines?
Yeah, I think creating time for it, like I said, is really important. So if you're like first thing in the morning, I'm gonna go walk or I'm gonna go to the class or go to the gym, and you abide by that. I right now am trying to. My ballet teacher used to always say it takes 3 months to really create a change and to build a habit. So I forget what day I'm on, but I'm doing 3 months of this. Hey, we're getting up in the morning and at night we're doing this. And at first I thought, is that not enough? But that will build to then when I am in these classes, my body is ready for. She's not shocked by. Um, and just speaking kind of like dancer language, if I want to work on my jump, let's say, I need to work on the mechanics before I ever jump, before my feet leave the floor. I need to work up on how to properly step up, step down. Then we build to a hop.
Yeah.
Then we build to a really big jump, or we start with 2 feet versus 1 foot. Um, so strategy gives you stability. Strategy gives you stability. Routine gives you stability. Consistency gives you stability. And from stability, we can grow, we can expand. If you don't have a base, you don't have anything. And so, Atomic Habits is a really amazing book. The Diary of a CEO is an amazing book. And all of them talk about how you succeed or fail based off of your habits, the strength of your habits, the strength of your routine. If you don't have a good routine, You're you're gonna have to restart and restart and restart, which restarting is a part of the process. Also, I just want to say this, whether it's for movement, workout, or anything, I I think failure is a privilege. I'm learning.
Yeah.
Or to know that failure is necessary is a privilege that I didn't really grow up with.
Can
What?
you say more about that? Like, why is that? What do you mean by that?
Because oftentimes when we start a new journey, whether it's a fitness journey or it's like I want to be consistent with my dance classes or with my auditions or um, I want to book this job, I want to be in this movie, this film, whatever. Um, we don't always talk about failure. If anything, it's something we hide, whether it's professionally, personally. We be hiding, okay? Okay, so but failure is natural, number one. Okay. Uh in my opinion, at this point in time, failure is necessary. And I don't mean that you just go out and you be like pursuing failure, like let me just I was gonna say suck, but that's not what I mean. Let me like do poorly. But you will naturally come to a point where you come to the end of your knowledge or you try a particular method and it doesn't work. Or I don't know, and that's good because then you learn.
Yeah.
You learn this modality that I was using didn't work for me.
And
You know?
you're building that flexibility muscle too. Like working on being adaptable in real time, and that's really important mentally.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Very important. So I'm starting to look back on some of my failures, not with like, oh, I love that moment because I what? Don't.
Exactly. So you can
Don't. Where's my microphone?
be
What do you say?
honest.
Don't love it at all. Hated it. Hated it. However, now I can move differently. Okay. I can move differently. I can be more aware. I could be more communicative. I can be more curious. Um, so many things. But failure is natural. So like if someone's starting to move and they're like, oh, that stretch felt terrible, one, that's not a failure. But don't let that be something that makes you say like it's not for me or I just shouldn't do it. Oh my gosh, my body type just doesn't work or it doesn't help my mental health. You'll see how something helps you when you consistent.
You
Okay? Because you will. Mm-hmm.
want to say more?
I was just gonna say, like, in my worst, and there's so many factors I believe to mental health, obviously. Um, but in some of my worst mental health moments, in emotional health moments, I wasn't moving, both physically and in the spiritual sense. Okay, are we talking like that too? Um, I wasn't moving. I was sedentary, both physically and spiritually. Okay, I was not moving.
That's right.
And that is like the goal. I mean, like that's what if we're talking about like the enemy. That's what he wants to choke your voice, your expression, your movement, your belief, your faith, your connection to others. He wants you what? Isolated. Okay. um, and and I wasn't moving. I wasn't moving. My breath wasn't moving right. Okay. And I didn't plan to talk about this, but like I had panic attacks. And that was the worst experience. The worst. It truly was the worst. Very scary, lonely. Um, it felt shameful though it shouldn't feel that way. Um, I felt weak, super weak. And embarrassed, unworthy, what? Like all the things, all the feelings. And that's why I say like it's really important to be like, hey body, I love you. Thank you. Are we hurting today? Yeah, we are a lot. And like sometimes it's not that literal of a conversation. Sometimes it's just like, I don't want to move today, and so I won't. But tomorrow, I'm gonna move one step further than I did today. Okay. So I would just say for everyone to check in with themselves and see like what are the areas both physically and spiritually, maybe mentally, emotionally that I'm sitting, that I'm not moving, that I feel paralyzed. And can I push it forward? Should I? How long have I been this way? Have I talked to anybody about this? Let me move my body. And like it's so underrated, but I will say, like, as I've walked around my track, I am, I come from both of my parents, but I'm very much like my mom in this way. I be thinking about Jericho. And I got my song on. And there are some days where honestly I'm like, are you there? You know what I mean? Like, are we in connection? What's going on? Like what I'm seeing it's not adding up. Okay. The math ain't math and I hate to say this. Okay. And I am finding daily how walking around that track helps this. It helps this. Like I'm in a better mood. I'm in a better mood. Okay. Amazing. My faith is like it's easier to access when I move. When I'm on my couch, when I'm just watching other people living on Instagram, scroll, compare, I'm not moving. I'm watching you move, but I'm not moving. And um, I want to be a part of a community of movers. I want to facilitate movement. I'm not always going to get it right. And when I don't, I reorient, have the conversation if it's a conversation, change the movement pattern if that's what it is, and keep moving. And yeah, I think I personally just came out of a season of like a lot of the temptation was to not move. And I'm grateful that I can look back and see spurts of movement and thank God for you, Dara. Y'all need girlfriends, okay? Y'all need girlfriends. It don't have to be 15. My mom always say you can count on one hand. And you gotta keep moving. You gotta keep making an effort. If you fail, if it doesn't stick, okay. But like honor, hey, we tried. We tried. And keep moving. It's so important. Literally and spiritually. It's really important.
Yeah, I was gonna say I really love the combination, of the spiritual and the physical aspects that you brought to light, in your experience. And I think we all can relate to that, regardless if we want to accept it or not. It does impact you,
Mm-hmm.
how you move and even the stuckness, the isolation piece that you mentioned, like all of that, like can be translated spiritually as well. So thank you for making that connection. Yeah, and like I said before, I think we're meeting people in different places right now. Have these different relationships with their bodies, have had these different messages about their bodies that they maybe have internalized. So that's like the mental, emotional place that you have to unpack, and then how you care for yourself, physically was something that we do have control over. We don't have control over all the things that people say, but we do have control over how we show up for our body. So yeah, any other tips or I know you mentioned like the Atomic Habits and like the Diary of the CEO. Are there any other resources from your perspective before we end here on what people could look up or get in their library around movement?
Like a book, you mean?
Anything. It could be, I don't know,
Anything.
follow someone in particular. I mean, we could tell everybody to go follow you because, the diary and like, just your authentic expressions of movement also could be useful. Trying to tell her to like do a class or like do something that, people can really like benefit from in that way. But yeah, anything that you know.
Yeah, I was thinking today that I've been really blessed, honestly, that in my dance career and like in my conservatory training, in hindsight, there was a lot of mental health movement connected practices that they were introducing to us that when you're in, I want to be in a ballet company brain, you don't necessarily appreciate fully as you should.
Yeah.
But different practices that involve like checking in with your breathing, parasympathetic breathing is super, super, super important. If you start your day with that and put your phone away from you and start with the breathing, start with the gratitude, um, or prayer, also like super important. Also, there's myofascial release, which um, in its simplest form is self massage. So massaging your calves, massaging your feet, massaging your own neck, like getting into your shoulders and your face, like all of that helps break up some of the lactic acid, some of the delayed onset muscle soreness. Come on, terms. And all of that is really good. Foam rolling is very good. Using a tennis ball as well. Um, Stretching, like I said, getting into a dance class, a movement class, walking. Um, it's really important. There's so many YouTube videos that you can watch, as well as finances are something that you're like, I don't have the money to go to the gym right now. We are really blessed that there's so many resources right now. There's even dance classes online that you can take.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And also, I just want to say that you mentioned people kind of having like a love-hate relationship with their bodies. And I think we all have that, men and women, everybody, young and old, all different colors, different hair textures, different body shapes, all of those things. Um, and something that I'm trying to be really conscious of doing as I age is finding something about myself that I really like. I love my hair texture.
Yeah.
I like my skin. I like my shade. I like the size of my whatever. Um, and not being like, oh, I wish it was like so and so. Like, thank you for making me like this. It's enough. It's not too much.
Yeah.
It's not too little. And a big theme for me this past year, both in movement and in life, has been worthiness. Like, you are worthy of loving, being loved, and also like appreciating your body as you appreciate others. Why don't you kind of like, I like that. I've been liking this a little bit
Yes,
more.
I love that.
I've been
That's
having time
really
where I didn't, but
yeah. That's really beautiful. Thank you for ending with that, because I think people need to speak more kind things to themselves, and to have a practice of that, and even with everything we talked about, I just want to encourage the audience, like, not to just take this and put it into practice for one day, and like try to see, try to put things into practice. And when you do have a gap, like, try again. You don't need to be on anybody's schedule but yours. So whether it's saying kind things to yourself, or it's trying to like go walk around, the court, or whatever you're doing, like, just tell yourself one day at a time. But yeah. Thank you, Britt. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story, being able to access your own vulnerability, I think, is what naturally makes you a good fit for this conversation. People can connect with your authenticity and your genuine expression of who you are and all the things that you've been through, and just overall giving people insight about movement and body. And also, just as a therapist, I know that there's therapists out there who do like dance movement therapy. So people who are looking for therapists, if you want to incorporate that into your work, you can also specifically search on Google, or whatever counseling engine drive, like Psychology Today or Therapy for Black Girls, to find someone who has that specialty as well. So thank you all for being here. Again, thank you, Brittany, for this dialogue. And our next interview will be posted next week. And hope that you are enjoying the mental health series so far of 2024. Thank you all. See you next time.